Hey everyone, Steven here with Level 1 Sword. Wow, I can't remember a time that I've been this busy. Between being out of town twice in 2 weeks to taking on a graduation project, I have been flooded with too much to do and too little time. Expect this to be the first of 2 videos this week, both of them movie reviews, and I'm confident you'll be able to guess what the second one is going to be. This review will be kept to minimal spoilers, but there are a few plot points covered that the trailers left out. In the meantime, thanks for all your continued support, and please leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe. And with all that nonsense out of the way, the best feeling I get when I go to the movies is when I go in with low to average expectations for a film, and I get surprised by a great movie. Granted, this happens super infrequently since I rarely take risks with movies and tend to only see ones I am fairly certain I will enjoy, especially now that I'm a parent. Shazam was one of those movies I had seen the trailers for and was moderately interested in, but I had resigned myself to most likely streaming it or borrowing it from someone when I had the chance. Thankfully, I had some time to kill while traveling recently and was able to catch the lightning wielder on the big screen. So, how was it? Well, as someone who was completely unfamiliar with Shazam, or as I thought he was called thanks to a random Marvel vs. DC comic issue number 1 I had as a kid, Captain Marvel, I only had a minor sense of what to expect thanks to the humorous trailers. The movie really struck me as an irreverent, potentially hilarious PG-13 DC answer to the Deadpool films. Because of that, the main villain of the film, Dr. Savannah, played by Mark Strong, seemed like he was going to be underdeveloped judging from the scant footage of him in the trailers, but I was pleased that we see his origin story before anything else. A child who is tested, found wanting, and grows up chasing after what he fell short of is both enticing and rather uncommon when compared to many supervillains' motives. As I for one am someone who doesn't care for when a villain is reverse engineered to be a good guy all along, unless it's done in a way that makes sense and has weight to it, I enjoyed initially feeling sorry for the guy, only to be horrified by his later actions. Billy Batson, played by Asher Angel, is completely the opposite. He's been looking for his mom, whom he was separated from at the age of 3. In the meantime, he has been rejecting his foster families by being, well, a jerk for the most part. Despite his efforts, he winds up with the fairy tale of foster homes, where the kids like each other, watch out for one another, and parents who legitimately had devoted their lives to the raising of foster kids in a loving environment. It is not long after his placement in this home when Billy inherits the powers of Shazam, maturing his physique and likeness to that of a mature superhero by simply speaking the hero's name with one tiny caveat: he retains his 15-year-old mind. While much of the following antics are some of the film's funniest moments, some are a bit age inappropriate, which leads me to my qualms with the movie. This is not a kids' film. I realize that much of what I have described up until now may seem like a light-hearted, family-friendly superhero flick, but there are 2 aspects of the film which keep Shazam planted firmly in the gutter: violence and language. The violence is for the most part greatly implied rather than shown forthright, with one exception. There are these monsters which represent the 7 deadly sins: envy, gluttony, greed, lust, pride, sloth, and wrath. These beings commit some fairly horrendous deeds, ripping people apart, eating faces off people, clawing people to death, etc. This is done off-screen with plenty of sound to make sure you get the picture, but the exception is a female scientist who touches something she's not supposed to and she is turned into ash. This is seen from start to finish uncut, and she screams in agony while she falls apart. It's disgusting. I have to say, the amount of language really took me by surprise. It's been a couple of weeks since I watched it, so I may be misremembering here, but there seemed to be language throughout the entire movie. It is rated PG-13, so you're not going to hear any F-bombs, but just about every other word is present and accounted for. It just seemed to clash with the aesthetic of a golden-era superhero, chiseled chin and all, mixed with potty-mouthed kids. It is certainly something to consider if you want to bring your kids to see the movie. The level of violence and language reminds me of films from the 80s that really like to push the envelope. That being said, there is plenty to enjoy here. If you've heard this as the most fun DC movie recently, you've heard right. Billy's growth as a character and how he comes into his inherited gifts tie together nicely. Despite Zachary Levi acting totally different from Billy Batson at times to the point where he can seem like a different character altogether, the action is unavoidably standard for a superhero film in 2019, but there is plenty of it, so I can't complain too much. The film's climax is so good, I couldn't possibly ruin it for you. There's a lot of depth to the subtle nods the movie sometimes gives in relation to family, and it is honestly heart-wrenching at times and may make you glassy-eyed once or twice. That being said, I recommend Shazam! But maybe leave the kids at home for this one. As for myself, I consider Shazam to be one of those rare movies which exceeded my expectations.